My world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say I am what I am.
As you can see, we're down here in the luxurious surroundings of Dublin's Morrison Hotel, and I'm delighted to say I'm finally joined by Glenn Quigley, who is the author of The Moth and the Moon. Glenn, welcome to LGBTQlife and welcome to Dublin City FM. Glenn, we briefly spoke a couple of weeks back and you were anticipating, shall we say, the publication of this. You've now, as we say, you've upgraded. Then you were a writer, now you're an author. Tell me, when it first came out and you first saw the hardcover copy of this, what was your first emotion? Was it relief or was it pride?
It was, to be honest, I shook. I literally was shaking as I opened the box. I didn't think I would, but I did. But no, I think it was relief. It was finally, it existed. Yeah. You know, up until that point, the box was open. It could have been anything, but then suddenly it was a book.
Yeah, no, I could feel that when we spoke the last time. You know, it was just about we were on the cusp of it, and I could feel, you know, this is a man who's going from one mode to another, and you've got to be very proud of yourself, though. I mean, it's been a dream long coming, hasn't it?
Oh, it has. Yeah, very long time. So yeah, it's nice. Yeah. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah. Let's talk about Glenn the person before we talk about Glenn the author. Last time round, we very briefly touched on your bio. You're a Dubliner.
Yes.
Yeah, but you moved to the other side of the border, as we say. Even though the border with Brexit and all of that is a big issue. In reality, how did you feel? Because there isn't really a border there other than within our own minds, isn't it?
No, it's well, I mean, borders are borders. It was nice to move. It was. I mean, I liked living in Dublin and all, and like the people, but moving, it was different. You know, it is a different place.
Yeah. Did you move? And without getting too personal, did you move for work, or did you move for what we would call personal reasons?
Oh, no, personal reasons. I fell in love with somebody from the north. So.
That's look. Who can argue with that? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who might, but I mean, who could argue with that? Was it a difficult transition when you went there first?
Not really, to be honest. There's the little things, you know, the day-to-day stuff that you kind of don't realise first of all, and you know, there's the language differences. It can surprise you. Mm-hmm.
You've got a very Dublin accent in that sense of the word. You would have stuck out a bit. Were you ever made feel conscious of that when you went there?
No, when I'm up there, I have a Dublin accent, and when I'm down here, I have a Northern accent. Apparently, that's all I'm told.
Yeah, well, as I say, I think we're adaptable people. Where did you grow up in Dublin?
Tallaght.
Tallaght.
Yeah.
Which is, as we will come to in the book, very inland.
Yes, very inland. Not remotely like the setting of the book. No.
Yeah, and you know, growing up, particularly in Dublin, did you, like myself, did you say, well, this is the best thing since sliced bread, or do you say, well, there is a big world out there and I want to experience it?
Yeah, I was always kind of somewhere else in my head, if you know what I mean. I wasn't a very sort of outdoorsy person, but in my head I was always going to the places and reading about other things. Yeah. I was always, you know, somewhere else in that respect. Yeah.
And again, without getting too personal, because when you meet somebody who lives somewhere else and or perhaps is from a different culture, or even a different race, it's always, will I move there or will they move here? Was that an option in your case?
Yes, yeah, we thought about it. I had an alright job in Dublin, in what do you call it? It was the north side of Dublin. Anyway, I can't remember what it was. It was a computer-based job at the time. And we talked about maybe getting an apartment, and it turned out to be a little bit too expensive. We thought, well, look, why don't we try moving up there and see how we get on? And been there ever since. Yeah.
Your partner's name is Mark. But
yeah.
I mean, and for all those naysayers from 2015, you've been together for quite some time.
Yeah, it'll be 20 years this year.
Well, congratulations, because you are only a young man compared to me. When you got together, it must have been quite a different environment, both in Dublin and where Mark is from?
Yeah, but I mean, it was the very late 90s. It was 98, 99, and I was, Dublin at that time. It was vibrant. There was loads of places to go. It was very exciting,
wasn't it?
Yeah. So I've seen that. I've seen the scene change. On both sides, actually, Belfast as well. It's grown significantly since I moved up there.
Yeah. What are you living in again without prying too much? Are you living in a rural environment, or are you living in a small town?
No, it's small. Well, it's a city now, Lisbon.
Okay, yeah. How we hear various things about the north, about it's not the gayest, friendly place in on the island. What's your experience?
No problems, day to day, no problem at all. I've never encountered any serious issues. It's always been in the news. It's the politicians, but the day to day people are fine.
So would everywhere, say of the size of Lisbon, would they all have what I would call a gay-friendly social environment, or do you, like it used to be in Dublin, that there were only a very small number of places you could actually go?
No, well, there's nowhere in Lisbon, but it's a city, but it's quite small. There's very little social life, pubs and places that you would go anyway. So if you're going socialising, it's Belfast. Yeah.
Well, I always like to tell people that when I was growing up in Dublin in the mid-60s, now I'm showing my age, Belfast was far hipper than Dublin. Belfast was a really vibrant social, creative scene until it all went pear-shaped in about 1969. Is it getting a bit back to that?
I think so. Yeah, there's quite a big art scene in Belfast. There's always something going on, some performance or something interesting happening somewhere.
And apart from Dublin, it's probably got the pride of the island, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so for all of those potential tourists out there, go to Belfast Pride. It's very welcoming. And creatively or professionally, you are involved in what I would call graphic design.
Yes. Yeah.
Give the company a plug there.
Well, I design for themoodybbear.com, and we do like pop culture T-shirts with a sort of bear slant, whether it's sort of like a bear superhero stuff or movies, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And where do you market them?
It's mostly online. I design for Andrew Clark, who's based in Manchester, so he does all the printing and selling out of there, and he tours around bear events.
Yeah, because it is an appropriate time, because you're down here for 2018 Bear Fela. Is that an annual event on the Glen calendar, as we say?
Yes, I haven't been able to make it the past couple of years, unfortunately, but I do always try to get down for it, because I do the graphic design for the event. Yeah, posters and social media stuff.
Well, it's through Dublin Bears and our mutual friend Tom O'Connor that you and I have got in contact, and I have to say, from the time I've been doing the interviews with the Bears every year for about the last 3 or 4 years, they would have to be the most welcoming group within the LGBT community.
Yeah.
There is just something about the Bears. It's difficult to have a bad word to say. I'm not saying that it's all sweetness and light, but my experience is that they have been a completely welcoming group.
Oh yes, yeah.
And dare I say it, a very prominent part of Dublin Pride now.
Yeah, there seems to be. Yeah, it's they do the Bear Pride event.
Weekends, and I don't know what they had. They were supposed to have this vintage American car last year. I don't know if they had that.
Oh yes, I remember
Mr. Bear.
Like that.
Owen, who was 2017 Mr. Bear Ireland. He was resplendent, as we say in it. But getting back to the work itself, Mark, it's called The Moon, the Moth and the Moon. What I'd like to look at is how the artist turns it into the art, in that sense of the word, and something that's often very difficult for people to merge is I've seen your work, so you've clearly got a talent for graphic design or for creative design in that sense of the word. There's not many people who can merge that with words. What sort of a challenge did you find that? Were you first of all a graphic artist before you became what we would say as a wordsmith?
Yeah, well, the way I look at it, basically when I was in school, and I hate to bring everything back to school, but I was terrible at everything. I was just sort of like generally bad across the board. Except for 1 year, I had a really good English teacher who was very supportive, and she encouraged me to write essays. I wrote one. She loved it. My mother, since that day, once a month, have you written anything when you're writing the book? So, you know, so it was always there in the background.
I'm inclined, you know, based on my experiences, that I'm inclined to say you weren't bad at things. You just had a poor relationship with the educator.
Well, that's,
and you know, unfortunately, that's often the case. Because what sort of school did you go to? I went to the Christian Brothers, so that's my experience.
No, I went to a school in Rathcoole. It was just an ordinary school. I didn't.
But they didn't have religious in your day, did they? I mean,
well, no, I mean there were nuns floating around and priests.
Yeah.
but they weren't. You know, teachers were teachers. They weren't. It wasn't religious in that respect.
So did you find that? I won't say left to your own devices, but when you were given your own freedom to create, you were much more successful.
Yeah. If I left my own devices, I was able to figure out what I was good at and what I was interested in and build on it.
I suspect, like myself, again, you experienced quite a bit of discouragement along the way through the education process, rather than.
There was no encouragement or interest shown whatsoever.
It's a shame, isn't it? Really.
It is.
When you think, but. The good thing is, Glenn, you've put all this behind you. Particularly, I've seen your work in terms of graphic design. I've seen your work with with Dublin Bears. You've clearly got a great talent in that regard. So, but coming back to the book itself, this must have clearly been with you, the idea of writing a book. For quite some time. How far back does that go? Does that go back almost to your school?
Oh, that's right back. Yeah. I mean, it's a lifelong ambition, you know. And a couple of years ago, I just decided I had nothing. It was just sort of not in a rut, but nothing was really happening. And I thought, okay, this is the year I'm just going to try and write a book. I've never tried to write one before. I've written bits and pieces. And I thought I'm just going to try it, see how it goes. And then I tried it, and a year later, I had a book.
Oh, but obviously, you've now ruined my next question. How difficult was it in that period? I mean, did it start off slowly and then get easier as you got into it, or did it start off with a burst of creativity and then you get bogged down?
Well, no. To be honest, I wouldn't say it was easy. You know, there were challenging parts. You know, bits where the story sort of fought against you, and you have to kind of work around it and trying to figure it out. But the challenge I set myself was, if I can write one good short story, I'll be happy. And I wrote one short story, and I thought, hang on, there's bits in here. You know, what if I do this and write about this? And you know, it grew until it was full.
So how did you approach this? Because I always like to ask creative people about how they approach their art. Particularly with a novel like this, did you sit down and say, well, this is the gist of the plot, and then I'm going to map out the characters, and these are going to be the relationships to it, or did you essentially give your head a free rein?
It was mostly free rein. I tend to get ideas about characters or dialogue or settings, and I write them all down in documents. And I found this excellent tutorial about how the structure of a story. And I thought, okay, well, I've got this good structure that I understand. I've got this idea of this fisherman looking at a storm coming. I thought, what if I can apply the two together? What do I get? And I ended up, you know, basically from that one little scene of him looking at the storm, everything else came out of that.
Okay, well, that's an interesting one, because, and again, this goes back to almost the first thing I asked you. You come from Tallaght, which is a very landlocked part of Ireland. Yeah. The book, I would say, is certainly got a maritime theme, almost, or even a nautical theme. So, what, as I say, what grabbed your interest in that particular genre?
I've always had a very, very ridiculously romantic notion about lighthouses and that whole, you know, maritime aesthetic. I just love it. I think it's beautiful. When I was a kid, my dad had a fishing boat. And we went, I went fishing a couple of times, didn't like it, wasn't any good at it, but I liked the whole, the being on the sea thing, it was nice. And a few years ago I went to Cornwall and Devon and drove around and just completely fell over the place. And then that's the hell of a lot of that is in the book.
It's funny you should say that, because I was going to ask you, had you been to Cornwall? Because within about the first 10 pages or so, I thought, this reminds me of the time I went to St. Ives, or I went to Perranport, or all of these places. It's a magical place, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah,
stunning. And it inspired the setting.
Oh yeah, it did. No, I certainly it brought back that resonance to me, and it's over 30 years, nearly 40 years since I went to Cornwall, but it's you never forget those windy roads and the coves and all of that. In fact, I thought if that's the case, the one thing Glenn has, to a certain degree, overlooked was the compromise, or not the compromise. Was it the compromise?
It was. To be honest, I didn't want to write Poldark.
We will come to that one, Glenn.
Yeah.
But no, that's what really struck me, because I mean I tried to picture myself in the landscape there, and I thought, yep, you really did get it very well, and I thought, if he hasn't been there, my God, he's got some imagination. Yeah. Well, okay, and this is the interesting one. When I was reading it, and we came, for the first 50 or so pages, I thought to myself, what am I reading here? And I thought, yep. I'm seeing a bit of Thomas Hardy, and I'm seeing a bit of Poldark. I'm not going to, but no, that's it. The Poldark novels, they are very, very well written, and they're very popular. But then we got to about chapter 8, and I thought, yeah, well, we've had Poldark, and we've had Thomas Hardy, but we got to chapter 8, and suddenly we're tipping the velvet, and it's very much what I would call those classic British tales in that sense of the word. Was that coincidental, or was that by design?
No, it was again, it all... Generally everything in the book, if it's there, it's because I needed it to happen to show another aspect of the world. So there are characters in it that I needed to show, rather than saying, this is what happens, this is what the world's like, just, it's the typical thing of you show, you don't tell. So I introduced characters that would show aspects of how the world was different from our world, and how it's not the past as we know. Sure.
You said you pretty much, when you started writing it, well, you really had the head down, and you let the creativity flow in that sense of the word. But at any time, did you say, well, my strength is either writing characters, or writing action, or writing plot, or even writing dialogue? How did you approach that, or did you?
Well, no, I thought I was quite good at dialogue, and all the reviews that I've read so far, which have thankfully been very good, have all talked about the prose and the descriptive. So maybe that's better.
Well, no, it's interesting, because again, when I was looking at that aspect of it, I said I could see Glenn's capacity for graphic design, because you go into quite a bit of detail about setting scenes and environments, and I thought that might be the bit that's your real labour of love in the sense of the word. That
well, it was important. It was important to me because I could see it so clearly in my head. It was important that I had to get on the page. I had to let the reader see it as I saw it, instead of being vague about it. If I could see it so clearly, I might as well describe it. Yeah,
one of the difficulties is always writing characters in that sense of the word. Now, when we get to chapter 8, it's the revelationary chapter, is the way I would put it, because you suddenly realise, well, hold on, these guys are fishermen, but they're also gay men. And I thought that the way that was actually introduced was very well done, because it's not. It must be a difficult one to do in that sense of the word, without either trying to sensationalise.
Yeah, and you don't want to hit people over the head with it either. You don't want to. It's so hard not to. You don't want to be patronising, and you don't want to be too subtle, and it's a fine line to hit.
Yeah. Were there writers that you had previously read that might have influenced the way you approached that?
I think the biggest influence would probably be Armistead and Moth Moon. It's his books. Every time I read them, it's infuriatingly. It's because it looks so simple, and it's so well done. It's so complicated. It's so complex. I think it was.
As I say, Moth Moon is to me. He's a very easy writer to read, because he pretty much writes what he sees.
Yeah.
And it had a resonance with. You either understand that word or you don't, and if you do, well, his was just his. As I say, he got it down to a T. It must be difficult. Were you conscious at that point in time that, hold on, I am writing a gay novel here, or at least what I would call it's a homoerotic without being a gay novel in that sense of the word. Is that a description you would feel comfortable with?
I wouldn't say erotic. I specifically avoid the two things I didn't want was I didn't want swearing, and I didn't want sex.
Yeah.
Purely because I swear constantly. Yeah. And if I'm writing it, I'm basically just writing myself, so I had to take that out. And the sex, I didn't want to write sex. I just wanted to write,
Well, dare I say it? sex either when you see it on the printed page, it's either brilliant or it's appalling.
Yeah.
And that's one of the, and particularly gay sex is, you know, it's too easy to tip over into what we would call porn in that sense of the word. Looking at the essential narrative, and I don't want to spoil it for people, is that it's about shall we say, a large fisherman who would probably be, we could describe as a bear.
Yes.
Yeah, called Robin. And although it doesn't really come into it until about halfway through the book, what you suddenly realise is that his relationship with a former partner called Duncan is critical to the entire story. But he also has another admirer who's the young baker. But as you so correctly pointed out, it never gets beyond leaving it to people's imagination.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important factor to it. The other side of the coin then is that people would say, is this the male equivalent of chicklet?
Maybe it is.
Yeah. Well, look, as I say, it's up to the audience to get out of it what they want, isn't it? Well,
yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't written to titillate, and it wasn't meant to mislead people into thinking they were getting something. It was about that man, and everything else just sort of, you know, the flowed around him. Yeah.
The other aspect, well, there's quite a few aspects of it that I noticed is that you use quite a few what we would call literary devices. You know, you've got nature features very prominently in it. You also then have the interaction between people of a small community. Were you conscious that you were writing that, or were these deliberate choices?
No, I think they sort of came out of it. I was looking for ways. You know, it's like as you're writing, it's not that you're constantly saying, okay, well, this is going to be about nature and this is going to be mirroring this aspect. It's just that these things tend to pop up as you're writing, and then when you rewrite, you tend to go, okay, well, look, these things connect, so I can make these a little bit more obvious, and then it looks like I planned it out.
Yeah. Well, again, and they always say write about what you know about, and I suspect, although slap me if I'm wrong about this, I suspect you might have a cat.
I actually don't. My neighbour has a cat that we feed.
Okay. That's why I wore my cat t-shirt today. Yeah, because now there's two observations you made about cats which I thought were brilliant, which anybody who has a cat would recognise. Is one, you don't feed cat milk. You know, because otherwise you're going to be cleaning up a lot. And the other one, which I thought was great, again, only a cat observer would have mentioned it, was there's no point in playing fetch with a cat. Cats do not, you know, you can throw a ball all day and a cat's not going to bring it back to you. And I thought that was a lovely touch. Also, cats feature in it, as I say, as a good literary device as well. Something else I noticed, and again the cover will give you a nice one here, bit of semiotics for the artist. I mean, quite a lot of the pivotal scenes take place in a lighthouse. Yeah. Very symbolic.
Well, that's what everybody keeps saying. I think it's you all just have very dirty minds. No, again, I think that was the only thing that once I realised I could have a lighthouse in my story, I thought I am putting a lighthouse in that story.
Are you a fan of the trusty lighthouses?
I do like them. Yeah.
Because my uncle used to look after one, and you know, when I was because he was a Coast Guard, he was ex-Navy, and when I was about 6 or 7, I always remember again in Devon where they used to live, he took us up to a lighthouse, and there are certain things from your childhood that you never lose. One is, you know, I got taken to the Isle of Man, and so I've always loved motorbikes. And the other one, lighthouses. I almost lived in a lighthouse in Sydney. Yeah, so there's maybe you know, when you make the millions, you can buy your own lighthouse.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yep. So far, the book's only been out for probably less than a couple of weeks, but when I read the book, I'll be honest, I'm about 90% through, but I thought to myself, it's really appropriate that you're bringing it down for Bear Fella, because this really is a tribute to Bear World. Were you conscious again of that this? What you are is you're writing a homage to bears.
A little bit. I mean, it was partly to keep myself interested. It was partly because I don't tend to read books with these kind of men in it. It's always the 6-pack, you know, chisel jaw type. So I thought, well, no, I'm going to write about men that I like and men that
absolutely,
you know, represent my world. So
So
it was,
and you did it very respectfully.
I like to think so.
Yeah. Again. have you ever had anybody come to you and say, hold on, Glenn, I recognise myself in that character?
No, I keep thinking somebody will someday say that, and they're not based directly on anybody that I know. So it should be fine.
Yeah. Now, as we say, you can buy hardcover copies of it,
yep.
And you can also buy it online.
Yes.
Tell us, first of all, obviously, if you're going to one of the Bear events over the weekend,
yes,
you'll be able to buy it there. Otherwise, how else can people be able to get a copy of the Moth and Moon?
You can buy the ebook directly from the publisher, which is 9starpress.com, or you can go to Amazon to get the paperback version, and you can buy it. Barnes and Noble in America have it; they ship it over here. Or if you go to your bookshop and give them the ISBN, they should be able to.
So you go down to Chapters Books down in Cornell Street or something like that. What's the cost for a first edition?
For a first edition, it's $10.99.
Very reasonable. Yeah. Very reasonable. You've got this one under your belt. What's I cannot imagine a man like yourself sitting there on your laurels. What's next up for Glenn Quigley?
Well, after I signed the contract for that one, I had a year to wait for get it, so I thought I'd write a sequel.
So we get to hear about Robin.
What happens next?
Okay, exactly. Yeah. Look, Glenn, I've thoroughly enjoyed. I'm looking forward to reading it, finishing it off tonight. I've thoroughly enjoyed what I've read. I want to say congratulations to it.
Thank you very much.
And I want to recommend all our listeners, both on YouTube and on LGBTlife and on Dublin City FM. It's a great book, The Moth and Moon, written by Glenn Quigley. Get a copy.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
That I want to have a little pride in my world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say I